Welcome to our deep dive, into the mystery of Bigfoot.
Okay.
We're not just going to ask, does it exist? We're
Yeah.
going deeper.
Clear.
What does the evidence say?
Right.
What would scientists think about it?
Right.
And you're in the lab with us.
Okay.
So we've got these excerpts from this debate, right?
Yeah.
And it features this Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum. He's a renowned expert in primate locomotion.
Wow.
And then we've got Maddie.
Huh?
She's like a science communicator,
Right.
but she's a skeptic.
Oh, okay.
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Dr. Meldrum, he doesn't believe in Bigfoot. So that's kind of what I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
But why would he be in this debate if he doesn't believe in it?
What's really captivating about Dr. Meldrum's stance is that it highlights the difference between blind faith and scientific inquiry.
Uh-huh.
He's not about just believing something.
Mm-hmm.
He's about the evidence.
Right.
And while he finds the existing evidence really compelling, for him, it doesn't meet the threshold of, definitive proof.
Okay. Yeah.
He needs to see more.
Yeah.
He's a scientist.
So it's refreshing to hear a Bigfoot expert approach this with a really balanced perspective.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with the evidence?
Right.
I think it's important to first just acknowledge how much our understanding of human evolution has changed.
Oh, yeah.
We used to think it was just a straight line.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
It's not.
It's way more complicated.
Yeah.
It's more like a bushy tree.
A bushy tree.
With all these hominid species, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're kind of overlapping in time.
Yeah. That's crucial context, I think.
Yeah.
Because it makes the idea that there could be a relic hominoid, surviving from an earlier period.
Right.
Makes it much more plausible than we used to think. You can imagine, a primate lineage branching off millions of years ago.
Wow.
Adapting to very specific environments.
Okay.
And just remaining hidden even today.
Okay. This is kind of blowing my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some evidence.
Okay.
Some real tangible evidence.
Yeah.
So the footprints.
Right, the footprints.
Dr. Meldrum, he's documented hundreds of these.
Wow.
And they're not just big.
Right.
They actually have these anatomical features that set them apart from humans.
Yeah.
Even NBA giants,
And this is where Dr. Meldrum's expertise really shines.
Yeah.
He's literally studied the footprints of NBA players.
Wow.
And he can say with confidence that, a size 18 basketball shoe, that does not make the same imprint as a suspected Bigfoot track.
Oh, okay.
And he points to, these consistent features.
Uh-huh.
For example, the lack of a pronounced arch, that's one.
Okay.
Wider breadth, that's another one.
Okay.
And just different proportions in the toes.
Right. Okay.
Just very distinct.
But, Maddie, she's our skeptic. She raises a good point.
Yeah.
The critics argue that the footprint evidence is just too easy to fake.
Right.
So how does he respond to that?
He addresses that head on.
Okay.
He really meticulously documents, the context of each footprint find.
Uh-huh.
Is there any sign of hoaxing?
Yeah.
And he also emphasizes those consistent anatomical patterns.
Yeah.
The things that appear over and over again in these prints.
Okay.
And those are very difficult to fake convincingly.
So it's not just about finding a big footprint, right?
Right.
It's about the details.
It's the subtle anatomical details that really distinguish a genuine print from a fake one.
Okay. But what about the most iconic evidence we have? The Patterson-Gimlin film.
Right.
We actually have a clip of it.
Oh, cool.
So just listen to this.
Okay.
Okay, I'll admit it's grainy, but there's just something captivating about that.
Well,
It's undeniable,
Right.
So Maddie, of course she's a skeptic.
Yeah.
She questions, why are we assuming this is a new species?
Right.
Couldn't it just be a person in a suit?
A very good question.
Yeah. So how does he respond to that?
That's a very common counter-argument.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Dr. Meldrum's analysis gets super fascinating.
Okay.
He breaks the footage down meticulously.
Mm-hmm.
And he identifies 6 anatomical traits that you can see in the film
Okay.
that were unknown in any living primate at the time the film was made.
Wait, hold on. So he's saying they, the film, captured a creature with features that matched fossil hominids.
Yes.
That weren't discovered until after the film.
Precisely.
Oh.
And remember, this is 1967.
Right.
The technology to create a suit back then, that would accurately mimic those unknown traits,
Yeah.
especially with the scientific understanding at the time. Highly improbable.
Oh, okay. That gives me chills a little bit.
Yeah.
So we got the footprints. We got this film.
Mm-hmm.
What about the gold standard?
It's
DNA.
DNA.
Yeah, DNA analysis, that should be like the slam dunk.
Right.
But it's been surprisingly elusive.
Mm.
Dr. Meldrum actually voices frustration.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's frustrated with the reluctance of labs to test potential Bigfoot samples
Why is that?
because of the controversy.
Oh, okay.
And he really emphasizes the need for scientists to, like, be more open-minded,
Okay.
to be willing to examine evidence,
Hmm.
even when it challenges, like, their existing paradigms.
Right, right. So even if labs were willing,
Yeah.
right, it might be really hard to tell the difference between human DNA and Bigfoot DNA, right?
That's true. It could be really tricky.
Yeah. So can you explain that for us a little bit?
Okay, so imagine DNA as like a really complex barcode.
Okay.
It has all this like genetic information in it.
And we have this technology called sequencing.
Mm-hmm.
It lets us read the code,
Okay.
and we can compare it to other DNA sequences, right?
Yeah.
To identify
Yeah.
species
Mm-hmm.
and to see how they're evolutionarily related.
So it's like we're comparing their like genetic fingerprints.
Exactly.
Okay.
But if Bigfoot is really closely related to humans,
Yeah.
which a lot of people suspect,
Right.
then the differences are going to be tiny.
Okay.
So it would take a lot of testing to pinpoint those differences.
Okay.
Like the standard DNA analysis,
Yeah.
it might not be sensitive enough.
That's frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
Like we're talking about like potentially like groundbreaking discoveries
Totally.
being hindered by fear of the unknown, right?
Yeah, it really highlights the human element in all this.
Yeah.
But, Dr. Meldrum is optimistic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's optimistic about the future potential of environmental DNA analysis. Yeah, so that's where you take like traces of DNA from soil, from water.
Mm.
And he thinks this could be the key to unlocking the Bigfoot DNA mystery.
Okay.
So we'll see.
So let's hope so.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Right.
Maddie brings up another really important point.
What's that?
She says, couldn't these sightings just be bears?
Oh, right.
Like they're big, they're hairy.
Yeah, yeah.
It kind of makes sense, right?
It's a valid point. And bear misidentification, it's definitely a factor with Yeti sightings,
Okay.
like in the Himalayas.
Yeah.
But Dr. Meldrum points out that descriptions of Bigfoot in North America,
Yeah.
they really differ from bears.
Okay.
And Native American traditions. They
Yeah.
also distinguish between bears
Uh-huh.
and like the wild man of the woods.
Oh, no. Interesting.
Yeah. So that suggests that in their cultural understanding, these were separate entities.
Okay, so it's less likely to be bears here. Are there any other, like, potential explanations?
Well, some people have suggested it could be a variety of known animals.
Right.
But Dr. Meldrum, he addresses each possibility like methodically,
Mm-hmm.
and he highlights the inconsistencies in their descriptions or their behavior
Right.
or where they like to live,
Yeah.
their habitat preferences.
Uh-huh.
So he argues that the evidence really points to a distinct primate,
Okay.
one that's undocumented.
Okay, so we've got, like, the footprints, right? We got
Yeah.
the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yeah.
We talked about how complicated the DNA analysis is.
Right.
We've kind of ruled out bears.
Yeah.
So if Bigfoot is real, right,
Yeah.
where did it come from?
That's the question.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. And that's where the deep dive gets even deeper.
Okay.
We're going to explore
Yeah.
like the world of potential Bigfoot ancestors.
Ah.
And we're going to talk about the Bering Land Bridge.
Okay, sounds good.
So stay tuned for part 2. Welcome back to the deep dive. So last time we were talking about Bigfoot's origins.
Right.
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 Like if Bigfoot really is this relic hominoid,
Mm-hmm.
how did it even get to North America?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So the Bering Land Bridge,
Okay.
it plays a really key role in this mystery.
Okay.
So basically, it connected Asia and North America
Right.
during times when the sea levels were lower,
Mm-hmm.
and this allowed ancient species to migrate.
So it's like an ancient superhighway for animals.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
But would a primate really be able to like make that journey?
Well, Dr. Meldrum, he brings up this really compelling example,
Okay.
the red panda.
Okay.
So it's a small mammal,
Right.
and it successfully crossed the land bridge.
Mm.
So if something as small as red panda can make that trip,
Yeah.
a larger primate certainly could too.
Okay, that makes sense. So which primate ancestors could be in, like Bigfoot's family tree?
Right. Well, in our sources, Dr. Meldrum, he points to two really fascinating possibilities.
Okay.
Gigantopithecus
Okay.
and robust Australopithecines.
Okay, let's unpack those.
Okay, so Gigantopithecus,
Yeah.
it's like straight out of like a prehistoric monster movie.
Okay.
This was a massive ape,
Uh-huh.
roamed Southeast Asia,
Okay.
and we only have like jaw fragments and teeth.
Right.
But based on those, scientists think that it could have been like 10 feet tall
Oh, wow.
and weighed over 1,000 pounds.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
But how do we get from like a giant ape in Asia to Bigfoot in North America?
Right. Well, that's where the Bering Land Bridge comes back in.
Okay.
So you can imagine like a population of Gigantopithecus.
Yeah.
They migrate across this landmass.
Right.
And eventually they reach North America.
Okay.
So it's a really cool hypothesis.
Yeah, it really is. But was Gigantopithecus even able to walk on two legs? I always kind of pictured it as like a giant orangutan, just like knuckle walking through the jungle.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have enough fossil evidence to say for sure.
Okay.
Like without leg bones, without a pelvis,
Yeah.
it's really hard to reconstruct how it moved.
Okay, so the jury's still out on whether Gigantopithecus was a biped?
Right.
What about the other possibility, the robust Australopithecine?
Okay, so the robust Australopithecines,
Yeah.
sometimes called Parantopus,
Okay.
they're a really fascinating group of hominids.
Uh-huh.
They lived in Africa between about like 2.7 and 1.2 million years ago.
Okay.
And they were definitely bipedal.
Okay.
They had these massive jaws and teeth,
Oh, wow.
like adapted for crushing tough plants.
Okay.
They're even sometimes nicknamed Nutcracker Man.
Nutcracker man, I like that. But
Yeah.
how did they get from Africa to North America?
Right.
And how does that connect to Bigfoot?
So remember when we were talking about Dr. Meldrum's analysis of the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Yeah.
He identified those 6 anatomical features, right?
Right.
That were unknown in any living primate
Yeah.
at the time.
Right.
But they're now recognized in fossil hominids,
Okay.
specifically robust Australopithecines.
Okay, so we're talking about like the sagittal crest, right?
Yes.
Like that bony ridge on the top of the skull.
Right.
The flat face.
Yeah.
Like features that we used to think were like anomalies.
Right.
But now we know they're part of like our evolutionary history.
Exactly. So the hypothesis is that a population of robust Australopithecines,
Yeah.
or a very closely related species,
Okay.
somehow they made it out of Africa,
Wow.
across Asia,
Yeah.
and eventually across the Bering Land Bridge into North America.
That's a heck of a journey.
Yeah.
Is there any evidence to support this?
Unfortunately, no direct fossil evidence in North America.
Oh.
But there are some really tantalizing clues.
Like what?
So some researchers, they think that Gigantopithecus might have reached Siberia, which, puts it much closer to the Bering Land Bridge.
Right.
And some researchers, they argue that certain features in the Patterson-Gimlin film,
Yeah.
like that flat face
Yeah.
and the sagittal crest,
Uh-huh.
they're actually more consistent with robust Australopithecines
Okay.
than with Gigantopithecus.
So we've got these two possible ancestors, right?
Right.
Both with these like pretty intriguing connections to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the evidence, it's fascinating,
Yeah.
but it's still inconclusive.
Exactly. And that's the thing with this field.
Yeah.
It demands like an open mind and a willingness to consider possibilities that challenge like our conventional thinking.
So speaking of challenging conventional thinking, right?
Yeah.
How has our understanding of human evolution, how has that affected how we think about the Bigfoot evidence?
So Dr. Meldrum points out that, when the Patterson-Gimlin film came out back in 1967,
Right.
the dominant scientific view, the paradigm, it was this straight line of human evolution,
Right, right.
like one species neatly evolving into the next.
So the idea of like a large unknown primate
Yeah.
existing alongside humans, that was like radical.
It was completely radical. It just didn't fit the narrative.
Yeah.
And Dr. Meldrum argues that this bias, it probably influenced how scientists reacted to the film at first,
Okay.
leading to like dismissal
Yeah.
instead of genuine investigation.
So it seems like science sometimes can be resistant to ideas that challenge, like, their accepted paradigms.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's human nature.
Yeah.
Like, we like to cling to worldviews that make us comfortable.
Yeah.
So Dr. Meldrum, he encourages, a more open-minded approach.
Right.
Like, let the data guide you, even if it leads to conclusions that are unexpected.
Yeah, it's inspiring to see someone like him pushing those boundaries,
Yeah.
even when he faces resistance.
Totally. Like, he embodies the true spirit of scientific inquiry, like relentlessly seeking knowledge.
Yeah.
Even when it ventures into uncharted territory.
Okay, so we talked about, like, the potential ancestors.
Yeah.
We talked about, like, the challenges of changing these scientific paradigms. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about a question that comes up a lot.
Okay.
If Bigfoot is real, why is it so elusive?
Right.
Why haven't we found more, like, concrete evidence?
Right. That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And it's what keeps the mystery alive, right?
Yeah.
So, the regions where Bigfoot sightings are most common, like those dense forests, those remote mountains,
Right.
they also happen to be some of the least explored
Okay.
and least populated places in North America.
So you're saying they could just be really good at hiding in, like, a vast, like, unmonitored wilderness?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, even with all the technology we have today,
Right.
like trail cameras, drones,
Yeah.
there are still these vast areas of wilderness that we don't see.
Right.
So a large, intelligent creature
Yeah.
could easily avoid being detected.
Yeah. So it's less about, like, invisibility cloaks and more about, like, good old-fashioned wilderness survival skills.
Exactly.
But what about other types of evidence? Like, besides footprints and blurry footage, has anyone found, like, hair or scat, nests, like, anything like that?
There have been reports of such evidence.
Okay.
But just like with the DNA, it's often very difficult to analyze conclusively.
Right.
Like scat can be hard to tell apart from other animals.
Yeah.
And potential nests or shelters, they could just be natural formations.
So another dead end?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Dr. Meldrum, he's collected a lot of hair samples that are attributed to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And he describes some really interesting characteristics.
Okay.
So, for example, he notes the lack of cellular medulla, which is unusual in most mammals.
Right.
Although it can occur in some humans that have very fine hair.
Okay.
And he also points out that the pips of the hairs, they look worn.
Okay.
Which suggests they have been cut.
Right.
And there's this consistent lack of grooming or styling.
Yeah.
Which you would expect in a human, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So the hair evidence, it seems promising.
Yeah.
But I imagine that DNA confirmation would be, like, crucial.
Absolutely. DNA would be the game changer.
Yeah.
But the mystery remains.
Yeah.
We have all these really tantalizing clues. But that definitive proof, it's still out there.
It's like we're always just one step away.
I know. It's the ongoing frustration, but it's also the fascination.
Right, right, yeah.
It's this pursuit of the unknown that drives scientific inquiry forward.
It's a reminder that there's still mysteries out there. Yeah. There's still wonders to be discovered.
Sure.
But where do we go from here?
Right.
Like what are the implications if we do find that irrefutable proof? Like, what if Bigfoot is real?
Yeah. That's a conversation for our final segment.
All right.
So stay tuned. We're back. And it's time to talk about, like, the ultimate question.
Okay.
What if Bigfoot is real?
Right.
Like, what would that mean for science?
Yeah.
For how we understand ourselves?
Right.
For our place in nature?
Yeah.
It's almost too big to even think about.
No, it really is. It makes you rethink everything. Imagine what it would mean for paleoanthropology.
Right.
The study of human evolution. Yeah. Would this be like a revolutionary discovery? Would we have to rewrite textbooks?
Right, yeah.
Like, totally reevaluate how we understand primate evolution? Or would it just kind of fit in to what we already know? Like, just confirming that, oh yeah, there are more branches on this hominid family tree than we thought.
Yeah.
Like, would it be that simple?
Either way, I think the impact would be, like, massive.
Yeah.
There'd be so much research.
Yeah.
A global effort to understand this new species. Like, anthropologists, biologists, ecologists, geneticists,
Yeah.
all wanting to study this creature.
It'd be like the scientific equivalent of discovering a lost civilization or something.
Totally.
But we can't forget about the ethics of this.
Oh, right.
You know, like we've already had trouble figuring out how to treat our closest primate relatives, right?
Yeah.
Like chimps and gorillas.
Right. Yeah.
So would Bigfoot be given those same rights and protections?
It's a really important question.
Yeah.
And Dr. Meldrum, he makes this comparison to the discovery of gorillas. So at first people thought they were these monstrous beasts.
Right.
But then we learned more about them,
Mm-hmm.
about their intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
their social complexity, their vulnerability,
Right.
and how we saw them. Our perception, it shifted.
Yeah.
So could the same thing happen with Bigfoot?
From monster to like a fellow intelligent being.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a mind-blowing thought.
It is.
And honestly, it challenges some of our deepest biases as humans. Like,
Yeah.
It makes us ask, are we really alone at the top of like the intelligence pyramid?
And even beyond intelligence, it raises all these questions about our relationship with nature. You know,
Yeah.
have we been sharing this planet
Yeah.
with another intelligent species this whole time, and we didn't even know it?
Yeah.
Like, what does that say about how much we understand the world around us?
It's humbling,
Yeah.
but it's also awe-inspiring. You know,
Still.
it just shows how much we still have to learn,
Yep.
how many mysteries are still unsolved. It makes you wonder, like, what other discoveries are waiting out there?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And this is why the search for Bigfoot, no matter what the outcome is,
Yeah.
it's so valuable.
Right.
It pushes
Yeah.
the boundaries of scientific inquiry.
Uh-huh.
It challenges us to question our assumptions
Yeah.
and to embrace the unknown.
It's not just about like finding Bigfoot, right?
Right.
It's about the journey. It's
Yeah.
about the pursuit of knowledge
Uh-huh.
and expanding how we understand the world.
For sure.
So I'm curious, where do you stand on this? Like, do you think Bigfoot's out there?
Well, as a scientist, I have to follow the evidence
Right.
wherever it leads.
Yeah.
And the evidence for Bigfoot it's intriguing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not conclusive.
Right.
So I'm open to the possibility,
Uh-huh.
but I also know how important it is to do like really rigorous scientific investigation. Belief alone isn't enough.
Yeah, that's a great perspective.
Yeah.
It's that balance, right? Between being open-minded and being critical.
Uh-huh.
That's essential to science, to discovery.
Totally.
So what does all this mean for our listeners?
Yeah.
Well, maybe Bigfoot is real, maybe it's not.
Right.
But what really matters is that spirit of inquiry, you know, the willingness to explore the unknown and to challenge what we think we understand about the world.
It's about embracing the mystery
Yeah.
and acknowledging that there are still like wonders out there that we can't easily explain.
So we've explored the footprints, we've analyzed the grainy film, we've delved into like the complexities of DNA.
Right.
We've even thought about like, what if we discover a new intelligent species?
Yeah.
What would that mean?
It is mind-blowing.
So now we want to hear from you, our listeners.
Yeah. What do you believe?
Does the evidence convince you?
Yeah.
Or is Bigfoot still just a myth, just folklore?
Yeah. So we've presented the evidence.
Yeah.
We've looked at different perspectives.
Right.
And we've talked about like the potential impact of this kind of discovery.
Uh-huh.
So now it's your turn to think about the possibilities
Right.
and come to your own conclusions.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Bigfoot mystery.
Yeah.
Keep questioning
Keep exploring.
and keep that sense of wonder alive.
Absolutely.